Hi, my name is Kelly Crook, and I will be helping with AP Biology this year in the Confer Mentoring program. First off, in this video, I want to talk about a brief introduction to AP Biology. Then I want to go into some advice that I have for you for planning over the summer, and then what we'll be covering in the mentoring program this year. Okay, so first off, AP Biology is like the first year course of biology for a biology major. And it's going to include lecture and lab material. And students can earn credit for that whole first year of freshman biology, depending on where they go to school, what they major in, and what score they earn on the AP exam. So, for example, if they get a 3 on the AP exam, depending on where they go, what they major in, that might give them credit for the whole first year lecture and labs of biology. If they go to a different school, different major, maybe that 3 only gets them 1 semester, maybe it gets them lecture but not lab. It just kind of depends. But at any rate, they can earn college credit for this course. Okay, the AP Biology content is divided up into 4 big ideas. The first big idea has to do with evolution. The second big idea has to do with free energy, molecular building blocks, so chemistry, growing, reproducing, mating, homeostasis. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Big idea 3 has to do with genetics and DNA, that kind of thing. And big idea 4 has to do with interactions, like ecology. This is probably a different arrangement of material than you are used to or the way you learned it. But the cool thing is that it lends itself really well to getting the kids to think about how the different concepts in biology are related. Okay, so 25% of your time, in fact, should be spent on lab work. And the focus should be on inquiry-based labs. You want to do at least 2 labs per big idea. On the College Board AP Central website, there is 13 suggested labs, and you'll want to pick 2 per big idea. And you don't have to use their labs, you can use other labs, but have a look at their labs, see what you think, and if you have something that you think is better or more suited to your class, you can use it. Okay, so where to begin? So when you start planning summer, one of the first places you'll want to go is the AP Central website. To find where you're going, go to AP Central and then look for courses and exams. Then you'll want to look for course home pages and then find biology. And on the biology page, there's just a ton of information. It can be a little overwhelming. So the things you'll want to look for first are the course overview and then the full course description. The full course description includes the curriculum framework, which is going to be really important. It tells you what the students are expected to know about everything, and it also tells you what they're not expected to know. So it's really helpful. And there's also practice exam in there with some sample multiple choice questions and free response. So it'll give you an idea of the style of questions students will be asked. There's also the Lab Manual Resource Center. That's where all of those 13 suggested labs can be found. There's course planning and pacing guides, and there's 4 of those. So that can give you some good ideas about what order to go in, some activities to use, that kind of thing. And then also, if you look for about the AP Biology exam, if you go into that section, there's going to be release questions. So you can see free response questions that have been released for a lot of years, actually. There's not too many multiple choice questions that have been released because I guess they reuse them. There's the practice test that's in the same document as the curriculum framework. And then there's also a longer version of that test, basically more questions. And then there's another released exam. And those 2 things are protected. Once you have your audit password and your login, then you can download those files. You'll be able to get those probably later. Okay, so some advice for summer planning. This is all based on my personal experience and what works for other teachers that I've worked with. And so you by no means have to do any of these things or all of these things, but I think that they would help you if you tried. The first thing I suggest is just sit down and make a school calendar for yourself and put everything you can think of on there. Try to get as much information as you can. So if you're on the block schedule, get all the 8 days. Put all the holidays on there, your testing days, early release days, pep rallies, assemblies, anything that's going to pull your kids out of class. You want to put that on there because you want to know how much instruction time you have. And that'll just really help you prevent a lot of headaches later on. For example, if one class has an assembly and your other classes don't, if you plan for that, it's no big deal. But if you don't plan for that, then one of your classes gets off, it's a headache. So just trying to find out how much time you have is a good starting point. Then, it's a great idea to try to plan out in a really basic way your entire year, if you can. I personally like to assign a topic for each day of the school year, and I would also include on which days I was doing which labs and on which days I was doing tests. That helped me a lot. Once I got all that planning out of the way over the summer, then when school started, I could worry about what we're going to do on those days. If I'm teaching evolution one day or for a series of days, then I could focus on which activities and labs and whatnot I would be doing, but I would know this is the amount of time I have for this topic. And that way, if I needed to adjust it, I would know later on down the year what I was sacrificing. So if I needed 3 extra days to teach something, those 3 extra days had to come from somewhere, and I would be able to make informed decisions about what I was going to cut from to make that happen. And that way the year is less likely to, it's less likely to happen to you. You want to have more control over the way you spend your time and not arrive at the end of the year going, oh my gosh, what happened to the whole year? I still have a whole unit to teach and we're ready to take the test. So planning is really, really helpful. Well, let's go back to that real quick. I know that many of you will have a lot of questions about what order to go in, how much time to spend on things. My first suggestion is have a look at those pacing guides and sample syllabi and just kind of see how other teachers are doing things, see what resonates with you, what order you think you would like to go in, and use that as a starting point. And then feel free also to contact me over the summer and know that as we get into this, we will be talking about how much time to spend on things and that sort of stuff. So if you're a very brand new teacher, I would say planning out for the whole year is probably really not necessary or advisable because you might drive yourself crazy. But try to do a real brief, basic plan for maybe the first 6 weeks or first semester if you can, and then once we get into the year, then you can do some more in-depth planning once you kind of get a feel for things. Okay. Some other things I would think about over the summer are the ways you want to approach lab work. So there's a lot of different things you can do. What kind of lab products will you ask of your students? You want them writing full lab reports. I personally am a fan of mini posters and having students do mini poster sessions where they get peer review advice and they have a chance to modify their lab work before they turn it in. I can talk more about that later. Will you assign your lab groups? Will you let students pick their lab partners? Are you going to change up the lab partners every time? These are just some good things to think about as you go into the year. That way you kind of know how you're going to do things, and you don't have to worry about this while you're worrying about health things when school starts. Also, if you have a chance and you have access to your lab, it's great to kind of look and see what lab supplies you have, if this is going to affect which lab you could do. So if you don't have the supplies to do something, then don't do that lab, do a different one. And that's good to know going into the year. Or if you're going to have the opportunity to order some stuff, it's good to know what you don't have if you would like to buy that for a certain time. Also, a lot of kids are not really used to doing in-3 labs. A lot of teachers aren't really used to doing in-3 labs. So if you're not used to them or if your students aren't used to them, how are you going to coach them to design and perform your own experiments? You might want to start off with kind of an easier lab or kind of do inquiry in bits and pieces. So you kind of guide them through the process a little bit at first and wean them to be able to do it on their own later. And we can talk about that too if you have questions. Okay, so also free response writing. Half of their exam is free response questions, and so it's really great to have them practice writing throughout the year. So how often do you think you might want to do that? How many students are enrolled in your class? So if you have a lot of students, it's a lot of grading perhaps. And so you might want to think about some different ways you might want to have them write and how you might want to grade them. It's a good idea to go look at the free response portions of the 2013-2014 exam. You can see examples of the long questions and the short questions and get a feel for what kind of questions students will be asked. And it's a good idea also to find out if your school has a policy about peer grading. Because peer grading is a great tool if you can do it. It's a great way to get kids to learn from each other. So I recommend it. Okay, also you might want to think about your grading policy. Do you even get to pick your grading policy? If you do, how much of your students' grades do you want to come from tests, labs, homework, quizzes? I personally did not do a lot of homework with my AP kids because they cheated, honestly. And also because in a college class, there's usually not a whole lot of homework, and the students are supposed to take more initiative. So I would do a lot of kind of optional homework, ungraded homework. So I would give assignments and put them on my website, and then if students did them, they could bring them to me during tutoring time, and I would help them. And if they didn't do it, then whatever. As long as they learned the material and they were doing well in class, then that was fine. They were free to learn and practice at home, however works best for them. Anyway, also, what will your makeup policy be? Will you allow retests or test corrections? These are all things you might want to think of ahead of time. Just while I'm on test corrections, I do think that test corrections can be really valuable. One of my favorite activities, actually, in class is giving students back their multiple choice portion of the exam with no marks on it. So they don't know which questions they got right or wrong, but I tell them how many they got wrong. And then they get to retake the test and change perhaps, any answer that they want to. They can talk to people, they can look in the book, and then fill out a new Scantron. And it's a really great learning opportunity for them. The conversations that happen during that time period are really wonderful, and I recommend it if you think that would go over well with your students. Okay, for content, for thinking about what you need to teach, how far in depth you need to go on certain things, use the curriculum framework as a guide for what you teach and what to leave out. It's pretty specific about what students need to know, and it gives you ideas for examples you can use to teach it. It tells you they don't need to know this thing. So that's a really great tool. And just so you know, if you scroll down to the appendix of the document, the essential knowledge, enduring understanding, the learning objectives, those are all organized into nice, neat little tables that are much easier to digest than the big, long document. Another trick that's really helpful is you can search the PDF file. And so if you're looking for a certain topic, so for example, photosynthesis, I like to just search the document photosynthesis and click through and see what they need to know about that. That's also really helpful. And then here is what I plan to talk about in our sessions throughout the year. I'm kind of waiting to see who signs up and what they want to do and what order people are going in. And I may change this up depending on the needs of everybody. But for right now, I'm planning to go in the order of the big ideas, spend about 2 sessions on each big idea, and then also be talking about other things each time. So for example, the first session, I plan to talk about big idea 1, so evolution, and then also the syllabus. And then in session 2, I'll talk about more evolution, but then we'll talk about inquiry labs, how to introduce inquiry labs and do those in your class. So this is my plan, but I'm very much open to suggestions and changing it up depending on what people want and need. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is kellycrook@gmail.com. I'd be happy to talk to you over the summer if you have a few questions to get you started. And thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you and working with you this year. Bye.